Hey guys, welcome back to A2D, Agree to Disagree. All right, it is Wednesday. You guys already know what we are here to do. We are getting into week 4 starts and sits. By this time, some of the guys that you already drafted are already duds, and you're having to force to sit them, maybe drop them. And what we're here to do is we are going to answer your questions, and we are going to tell you, who those guys are, who you should be, sitting, and who you should be finding replacements for. I'm here with BT, man. We are here week 4, man. The season's already kind of flying by us. We've had some roster adjustments in our league, I know. So, starting off with that Thursday night game, man, let's get into that real quick because, I know we have some questions about that game. So you're here to do some sits, man. Who are some sits or, what do you think about that game, first of all?
That game, dude, I don't see a whole lot of sits in that game. That's why I'm like, whoa, I don't know about sits in that game. That's a game that, for me, I see a lot of points going up.
Mm-hmm.
The Bengals are starting to get going. They got going last week against the Jets. And Tua and the Dolphins are 3-0. They got the two playmakers on the outside, Tyreek Hill, already getting it going, talking to Eli Apple that he's going to dog him. So I see a lot of points. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I mean, Tyler Boyd even broke one off last week. So there's just playmakers all over, man. So I it's funny, dude. I was at work today and I was I tagged Danny in this post, dude. Like the last time Burrow and Tua met, I think was in either like the play-in game or playoff game. Yeah, Tua versus Joe Burrow, and he had Jefferson, Chase. There was Najee Harris, Edwards-Helaire. Freaking the corners were Trayvon Diggs and who was the other corner dude? Just talent everywhere, man. And that game was super high scoring. And you see Jalen Waddle, who was in that game, Devontae Smith, he's not in the game, but like you look on in this Thursday night game, and you got duos, two electric wide receiver duos on both sides of the ball. You got quarterbacks that have been in the system now, so I think that's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I actually have Tua on my roster. I picked up Trevor Lawrence. You were just talking about roster adjustments. So I made a move to pick up Trevor Lawrence, and I have to just kind of decide Tua or Trevor Lawrence, and I have to make up my mind by tomorrow. And for me, it's kind of easy. I'm going with Tua because, like I said, the last time those two played, man, and the two offenses, defenses are a little underrated. They're both solid, but the quarterback play and that talent on the outside on both sides of the ball is going to be too much to stop. So I see both teams probably getting in the 30s. So, I'm rolling with Tua.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the more fun games to watch this week. I have a little piece of it. I have Joe Mixon, but you're not, you don't have a question about Joe Mixon. You're going to play him. He shedded his questionable tag. But as far as the question between Tua and Trevor Lawrence, like I do have Trevor Lawrence on my start list, but that little battle between, Tyreek and Eli Apple, man, like that's going to go to the cheetah, dude. Like this is going to be a week where Tyreek's going to be full go, man. They're going to be looking to throw the ball down the field. The only little kind of worry I have about Tua is he was kind of making comments about how his back's sore and, he was having trouble throwing the ball in that game last week.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he's got enough treatment over the last couple of days to where he can come in healthy. But yeah, that game's going to be high scoring both ways. You talked about how they competed in college. Like this is going to be a little bit of a rivalry. Alabama, LSU, like you nailed it, dude. Like there's history there. And I think that's why the NFL sees stuff like this. They put it in a Thursday night window. And, both these young quarterbacks are going to come out and try to make a statement. So, yeah, I mean, the only sits I could see in that game would probably be like Mike Gesicki, maybe. I mean, I just see all the targets going to like Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, so maybe stuff like that. But at this point, you're kind of benching those guys anyway, right? So, but yeah, man, that's Thursday night. I think if you got a Bengal, you got a Dolphin. We're lighting them all up, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, that's a good question though about Gesicki because he's kind of a fringe guy. He's been up and down. Could this be an up week? Possibly. It really just depends on your matchup. So if you happen to have Gesicki in your lineup, he's actually just dropped in our league. But if he's in your lineup and you have a question, let us know who your other options are, and we'll let you know. But to Mike's point, he is the third option in that offense. So if that is a guy that you have any questions about, that's kind of our 2 cents on that. But yeah, that's our Thursday night. We got Sunday and into Monday. The rest of our starting sits. Quarterback. Let's start up top with QBs. Who are some guys that normally maybe won't start, but you want to fire them up this week?
You know, man, this one, I watched that Monday night game and people are like, no, he's not fantasy relevant yet. Dude, Cooper Rush, man. I think that against Washington at home this week, if you're in desperate need of a streaming quarterback, Cooper Rush is a guy that you might want to look at. Washington has been letting teams kind of walk all over him, dude. I still don't have a pass rush. Their secondary isn't that good. So this is going to be a game that's going to have more points scored. Last year, when I think this game was in Dallas, I think Dak hung like a 50 burger on him, or it was at least 40 plus. So, Cooper Rush is in a spot to where now could Zeke kind of take over this game? Maybe, but I think Cooper Rush.
When was the last time he done that though? Zeke take over a game? That just sounds weird now.
Yeah. So
Cooper Rush, dude, that might be a good one. I mean, in DFS, he's probably dirt cheap.
Yeah.
So he's got the matchup, and he had a little connection with CD, and who dropped a touchdown too. So I mean, that could be a sneaky one right there, man, for sure.
So that's a guy that you're not going to hear these on all these start sits lists. They're going to go with all the obvious. I mean, they always say like we don't go with obvious, but then they have the obvious on there. So Cooper Rush, man, again, especially we talk about DFS, but if you're in desperate need, if you so like on the other end of it, like the last couple of weeks we could talk about Jared Goff, right? Like this is a week without maybe his top 3 targets. This is going to be a week where you'd sit a guy like that. And if you need to go out and like make an adjustment, Cooper Rush would be a good guy to.
Maybe if you are a Dak fantasy owner and you are in a position to where you've all of a sudden forced to stream, and maybe you picked up a guy like Matt Ryan, maybe Cooper Rush can get you more points than him. Who knows?
Oh yeah, right? I definitely think that. Yeah, yeah, I definitely think. I mean, you don't want to like go out and scream to the heavens like, hey, I picked up Cooper Rush, but you try to look at every single week and look at what could possibly happen. And I mean, this could be a 20+ week for the kid, and he looked pretty good last week. I mean,
and if you can get 20 from a streaming option, you're good. That's all you're asking for.
Yeah. Yeah. So
speaking of obvious though, I have one that I know you're not gonna like, and you can accuse me of bias all you want, but Patty Mahomes is going against a pretty good defense this week. Aaron Rodgers just kind of got held in check other than those first 2 drives. There's been 3 drives that this defense has given up all year where they've scored touchdowns. That's it in 3 games. So, yeah, I think this defense is legit. That offense, they missed Tyreek. They don't have the guy to take over the top. So I think now our attention is going to go on Kelsey, and they're going to have to slowly matriculate upfield, and the running game's not going to be there. So I think that he's not going to have – if you're looking for him, depending on who your matchup is really, but he's a guy that he's not the same – not this week anyway, like set and forget kind of guy. I think that if you can get at someone off waivers, like if you picked up a Trevor Lawrence or someone that is capable of scoring 20, then you might want to go that route, because I don't think Mahomes is getting 20 this week. He'll probably get 14, 15, maybe to up 18-ish. But I just don't see him being that same guy we're used to.
There's nobody on waivers, man, that I'm going to drop for Patty Mahomes to replace him. I mean, I have Kirk Cousins on my bench. and that would be something I would consider. But that's going to be a game in London. I don't like to play fantasy players in London because you don't know how the travel is going to affect them and all that kind of jazz. So I disagree with you. I mean, I do. I mean, I know you're a Bucs fan. I know that they have the best defense of all time. So you're going to say all that, but they did struggle a little bit against the tight end last week. That was kind of where they were hitting them a little bit. So I think Kelsey's going to have a good game. I think there's gonna be a lot of points scored in this game. Especially Mike's going to be back. I mean, there's going to have to be responses. Patty might look to run a little bit more. He's going to try to make a little bit more plays with his legs. He's going to have to. They're going to blitz a lot. I think he's going to get the ball out. So I'm not sitting here saying he's going to have one of his 40-point, legacy games, but I can't sit here and say there's going to be anybody that's going to get 20 points or more than he will. So I put him right at 20 points, 25 points, and that's perfectly fine for my quarterback position. In that same game, man, like another start that I had, people are certain they want to bag on Tom Brady. They're wanting to bag on Tom Brady and they're wanting to say this guy's done. And he has been without his receivers. There is a possibility he gets everybody back this week. Now, I still think Godwin's a couple weeks away. I do, but they're saying there's a chance. I say that they're going to be really, really careful with him. But with Mike alone, man, and it sounds like Julio might have a good chance to play this week. Russell Gage, they're going to be back to firing on, most of their cylinders. And again, I think this is going to be a high scoring game. And, Tommy's a guy that you can trust to get back into that 20 to 25 point range this week.
Yeah, for him, I think that's around the case too. Chiefs don't have as good of a defense, especially in the back end. So I think we'll get. I think it'll probably be like 24-14 type of score. Like I actually don't see it being a high scoring game. But Brady, I think, is going to probably throw a couple touchdowns. I know he wants to make a point. He was actually pretty sharp in this last game, but we had no receivers that can create any separation. This week, he's going to get Julio will be back, Michael will be back. I think those two for sure will be enough for him to spread it around.
One of the biggest things we need to talk about too is where is that game going to be played? So if that game is still in Tampa and it's weather affected, I don't think that's going to happen. I think the NFL is going to step in and move that game. They're talking about US Bank Stadium. So if they move that game indoors, that's going to make the score go up a little bit. But if that game is weather affected, then, scratch everything we just said. If there's winds and all that shit, like sit everybody. But no, if they move, there's a good chance they're going to move that game to US Bank. And, just don't use the Gallahorn, man, because you can't use the Gallahorn. But other than that, there's going to be a lot of points scored in that game if you move it up to Minnesota. So I 24-14 is on the light end. Oh, very, very light end for me. I could see more of like 31-27 type game. So, but that's that game. Going into, I talked about, the London game. So the one thing I have an issue with the London game is the travel. And these teams, I know Minnesota's played and New Orleans played in London before. Some of these guys have gone there. Justin Jefferson's never played in London. Some of these guys never played in London. So how comfortable are you starting guys like that when they have to deal with that travel and the time change and all that?
Well, Justin Jefferson, I almost had him on here, but you can't sit Justin Jefferson. But man, these last couple of weeks he hasn't been that great, and he's gonna have Lattimore, who doesn't actually shadow the guys. He'll follow them when they go man, but it kind of dictates what they're in. And you brought up Adam Thielen last week against zone. If you know what they're in, then you kind of know what matchup. So I actually think that Kirk Cousins is going to score some points against New Orleans. And then likewise, I think the Olave is going to end up getting by that defense. He's starting to come on. And then you got Michael Thomas as a red zone guy, Kamara. I think that game is actually going to have some points in it. There is a guy, though, that I'll sit since we're on that game. And from that game, and to me, I have a guy that I actually rostered in my other league to start the season. He had a good week one, Jarvis Landry. Mm-hmm. But he's a guy that you basically have to sit at this point. Even if he's healthy, more than likely he's not going to score a touchdown. He's kind of the middle chain-moving guy. On the outside, they got Michael Thomas, and then Olave is the home run hitter. So Landry's spot and fantasy relevance, honestly, unless one of those guys go down, Michael Thomas or Olave, then he's a guy that you could consider dropping. I actually dropped him in my other league. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Landry's not a guy that until one of those things happen, you really got to leave on the bench or, like I said, consider dropping because Olave and Thomas are the guys over there now.
Yeah, man, the last 2 weeks, man, Jameis has just been all over Chris Olave, man. I think he's combined like 25 or 26 targets over the last 2 weeks. I kind of imagined that coming into the draft this year, only because I knew he was going to be a guy that Jameis was going to like. I agree with Jarvis Landry. I honestly, yeah, man, it's time to drop him. Like I know he's dealing with a knee too. You're going to have a really hard time playing him going forward. I know that he had a really good week one, but going back to the other side, man, I talked about Thielen last week and how I thought Detroit was going to play zone. They didn't. They played man against us until the final 2 or 3 minutes of that game, and you saw how that ended. We beat zone defenses. That's what Minnesota does. But they played man, and Jeff Okudah, man, he locked Jefferson down, and Adam Thielen was the guy who kind of benefited from that a little bit. This week it could be a little bit more of the same, and again, if you have Jefferson, you have to just roll with that punch, man. I'm kind of expecting it this week. I have Jefferson and Olave in that game. I like Chris Olave in that game. Jefferson, I'm like, come on, man, please just give me a touchdown or something. But being your first round pick, like, you're expecting more than that. Adam Thielen, I think he always plays well against New Orleans. It's kind of one of those chip on his shoulder games. If they're going to be in man, again, when Lions played man last week, he beat it. So he's a man beater. He always has been. This is a week that if you're trying to figure out who to play in your flex or wide receiver 3 spot, Adam Thielen is a good he has a really high chance, and he likes London. Man, we played Jacksonville, I think, in London, and I think he scored 2 touchdowns in that game. So he likes London. So I would fire up Thielen.
Yeah, that's a solid one. Another receiver for me on the sit side I have written down is Alan Lazard. I have him.
Everybody does, man. Everybody hates on this guy, and I don't know why. He's the only guy getting red zone targets. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, but I mean, I just don't see. He doesn't create separation. I mean, if luckily he had Winfield, and that kind of showed me on defense, like maybe Winfield in the nickel, because he was small. Like, he was right there. Alan Lazard was too big. So if you can move a big guy inside like that, and he's good at blocking, but he just doesn't create any separation for me. Yeah, if you're relying on red zone targets, but it's not so much that he's bad or anything. Like, he's going to do his job really well for the team, but Dobbs, however you want to call it, is coming on. They might be getting Watson back here, and these are guys that are more big play, and I think Rodgers is going to end up giving them more targets as the season goes on. So I kind of see Lazard coming down a little bit.
I don't see how much more he can come down. He's been dealing with an ankle injury since the start of the season. So you're saying he can't – he's still not 100%. Last week he was throwing Gatorade up on the sideline. So, I mean, obviously he was dealing with something. He's not 100% there yet. And, he still caught 2 touchdowns in the 2 games he played. New England is a team that's going to try to take away your best player, and that's Aaron Jones.
Target share, air yards, all you take away those 2 touchdowns, and he is like droppable.
That's fine, but he still has those 2 touchdowns, and they've both been in the red zone, and you know how Aaron likes to look at certain guys in the red zone. So I could see him scoring again this week. I don't have him on a start list, but I don't have him on a sit list. And everybody's talking shit on him. I understand Romeo Dobbs, man. He's coming on. I get it. I understand it. But, it's those 2 guys are going to be there. He's going to get targets. He's going to get 6 targets. He's not necessarily a boom, but he's not a bust either, man. He's got a good chance to score a touchdown again. So I strongly disagree with it. I'm not saying that because he's in my lineup.
That's why it's called A2D, baby.
That's but I have New England, they like to take away your best player. I mentioned it just a couple seconds ago. This is a week that you're not going to sit Aaron Jones, you're not going to sit AJ Dillon. Like, you're actually going to play these guys. The Packers should, without Mac Jones on the other side of the ball, they should run away with this game. And I think AJ Dillon's actually a really good start.
I think they just played Baltimore, and their best players are Lamar and Andrews, and that didn't really work out trying to stop their best players.
Yeah, so, So, I mean, I think AJ Dillon. I was gonna say, because I think AJ Dillon's gonna be a good play this week. You're gonna play Aaron Jones. You're gonna play. You're gonna go that route. I think AJ Dillon's actually gonna be a good play this week at running back. And you're probably already playing him in your RB2, maybe even a flex spot anyway. But there's a really good chance. I would probably put there's like a 75% chance or higher he's going to score in a game like this. So I would fire up AJ Dillon in that game and have no reservations about it.
Yeah, they are. I always bring up the Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb because that's the only one that you see where you have 2 running backs on the same team that you feel comfortable playing basically every week. And AJ Dillon has kind of got into that mix. He's good. He's got a pretty high floor, and he's one play away from having a breakout season. So you never know.
You're forgetting about the dynamic duo of Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick, man. I mean, you're not going to play both those guys in the same week.
Yeah, right, dude. Especially this week.
So, but yeah, man, I see where
So
you're going with that.
sits. I'm gonna get into some running backs unless you got another receiver you want to get into.
I have one more receiver because I had a question this week. Going back to last week with Jeff Okudah, man, he's going to be locked up on DK Metcalf. So somebody had a worry about DK, and I said, hey, I looked at his lineup. I said, okay, you have DK Metcalf, who's somebody that you could put in. I understand the matchups. Like, you always see the green on ESPN, NFL, whatever. You see the green matchup. You're like, hey, that's going to be a good matchup. But Jeff Okudah, man, especially if they're playing man, is right now he's on fire. So I looked at his lineup, and I told him to put Robbie Anderson in, man. Robbie Anderson is a guy that he's playing Arizona, and I think there's going to be some points scored in that game too. And I think that he's going to hit a deep shot, and he has a good chance of getting one of the deep ones this week. He may not be a target hog, but I think he definitely has a good chance to score 15 to 17, maybe up to 20 points.
Dude, up to 25 sometimes. Robbie, you catch him on the right week, and then he could boom, and that's what it's all about is finding that right week, and this could be it, man. So yeah, that could be a good one for me. Getting into some sits on the running back side, the game we were just talking about, the Packers and Patriots. I have what's his hair?
Damien Harris.
Damien Harris. There you go. The one that I've been on this, and it's starting to come around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
First 2 weeks, it was almost like a 50-50 split between him and Ramondre. But like I said, I think the Packers are kind of going to get going a little bit. If Mac Jones plays or doesn't play, Patriots, they're just not the same anymore. They just got lit up by Baltimore. I think the Packers, they're getting guys back now, so their offense is getting rolling. And they only scored 14 points last week. They still haven't had that week where that offense has got going and scored some points. This could be the week. And if that's the case and the Patriots are trailing, Damien Harris is basically on the bench the whole game because in the past game, he's not effective. He's only good on the goal line and if they have a lead because then he's going to be in the game more. But I see that game getting away, and I see Ramondre Stevenson going to be on the field a lot. I think he's a potential start if I had that question. He's a guy that I like this week. But Damien Harris is a guy that I don't like this week.
Yeah.
And honestly, kind of going forward.
I don't like anybody. I don't like anybody at all on New England side. Like, I'm sitting everybody. I'm not saying they're going to.
If Hoyer starts, he's gonna because Mac Jones was kind of getting it downfield to Devontae Parker, and he did his best to try to keep up. Hoyer can't do that. Hoyer is going to be checking it down, and that's going to be the guy.
You know, man, if I was to pick somebody in this game, it's a long shot. But Brian Hoyer, man, seems like he'd be like a Hunter Henry guy.
I was thinking that too. Yeah,
he'd be a Hunter Henry guy, and we haven't heard from him at all this year. So I just feel like that's one of those like major sleepers. And Hunter Henry had one of his come out of nowhere classic 2 touchdown games. But yeah, I don't really care for anybody in that game matchup wise. I mean, they're in Green Bay, I think. I mean, everything about that game just screams leave it alone. But another game I like this week for high fantasy points is that Philly and Jacksonville game, man. So we've been talking about all week how Jacksonville has really upped their offense. Now I understand both teams' defense have been playing pretty well as of late, but I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in that game, man. Trevor Lawrence is coming back. I think Jalen Hurts, man, is going to have that game. I think is in Philly. The game's in Philly, so Jalen Hurts should have a good game. So fire up Devontae Smith, fire up AJ Brown. You're going to do that anyway. Miles Sanders is the one where you're having a hard time with. Travis Etienne, you're having a hard time with. But honestly, man, like I'm playing Travis Etienne this week. Like I just have this weird feeling he gets his first NFL score, and I just have this really strange feeling. So number one rule in fantasy, man, go with your gut, and my gut says that hey, he's going to score his first touchdown.
Hey, if you're 3-0, then you could definitely go with your gut, and you got a little luxury. It's not so bad.
Yeah.
But another sit I have for me, or you brought up what game was that? The Eagles game and Jags, right?
Eagles
so for
and
me, that just reminded me. I actually have a question about, not a question. I'll figure it out. Gerald Everett. It's for my flex. I picked up Zay Jones. So do I go Zay Jones in my flex? Do I go Gerald Everett or do I go Kareem Hunt? I got three guys to choose from. And man, Kareem Hunt, like I don't want to get emotional because he got stuffed on the 1 inch line twice and and dropped another ball on like the 5 that could have maybe scored on, but he could have had a big game. And they obviously use him. So like, and I've been a Kareem Hunt guy for a while. When I drafted him, I kind of almost had him locked in my flex. So I might go that way, but yeah, between those three, Zay Jones in that game, and that's why you made me think of it. So Zay Jones, Kareem Hunt, Gerald Everett.
Honestly, at this point, man, I think I would pick.
It's tough, right?
Here's the deal, man. Last year against Houston, Herbert went absolutely ballistic, but I think 2 of those were bombs to like Jalen Guyton, and they're not going to have Guyton. We'll see if Keenan Allen even plays. I like Josh Palmer in this game. I like Josh Palmer a lot in this game. He's actually on my list. I like Josh Palmer in this game. But Gerald Everett, man, I mean, he's another guy that's going to probably pick up some of those targets. The problem that we're going to see in LA, and we touched on it before, is they lost their left tackle. And is Justin going to have the time? How healthy is he? We think Austin Eckler's going to pick up a lot of those dump offs. I've always
they're going to want to rebound though. Like I think they're going to want to rebound. They just got embarrassed at home by the Jags.
Yeah. Well, they're playing probably the worst team in football. But the correlation between targets between a tight end and a running back is what we've always kind of talked about. At least I've talked about over the last couple of years. If I had to pick out of those 3, I'd pick Zay Jones because I think, just going with what I'm thinking in my head as you say it is Darius Slay's going to be matched up on Christian Kirk, and he's probably going to have the best matchup. It's going to be the highest scoring game. He's coming off a hot week. Trevor Lawrence is getting it going. I mean, everything like that just kind of comes all into a circle. He's probably like the 3rd name on the list that you think that you would start. But to me, when I think about everything, I think Zay Jones has the opportunity to have the highest ceiling only because that matchup has the possibility of having a lot of points in that game.
Yeah, he's projected the most points, and that might be the way to go. We'll see. I got a few days to make that decision. I'll end up making it, but yeah, getting back into some sits, some guys that I would consider sitting this week. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, call me a homer, whatever you want to do.
Man,
he's playing against the Bucs.
Really are a homer, man.
Yeah, well, when you've given up the least amount of points in the league and your defense has been number 1 against the run for 3 or 4 years in a row, yeah, you can call it a homer or you can just call it like it is. And we stuff running backs, and CEH is going against the Bucs in Tampa. Yeah, I just don't see him being that guy. Our linebackers cover.
Is it in Tampa?
Yeah, or US Bank. Either way, one of our places. So yeah, but CEH is just a guy, and these are guys that obviously, if you're gonna, what your waiver situation looks like, what your bench looks like. CEH, he's gonna get some volume, but I just don't see. Like, I don't see him scoring a touchdown. I don't see him being the guy that's going to have a big game. So if you have other options, consider those.
So actually, I'm glad you brought this up because, in my other league, I don't know who I think it's Leonard Fournette and CEH are their top 2 backs. And on their bench, they have Jamal Williams. And I think this week would be easy. I think you'd start Jamal Williams over CEH in a heartbeat, man.
Yeah.
Amon-Ra doesn't seem like he's going to play. Swift doesn't look like he's going to play. Hawkinson's even questionable. Hawkinson's a guy that I have written down on my list with a question mark because if he does play, I think he's going to get a lot of targets. But in the likelihood that those 3 guys are out, Jamal Williams is already like running back 8 on the season. He's already getting run. Yeah, he's already getting run anyway. So this is a good point, man. And I was looking at that. I was like, oh, maybe you got to find somewhere to put Jamal Williams in, and you would sit
right
CEH there before you sit Lenny. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. So CEH, if you got Jamal Williams, that's a good one. That's an easy one for me. You got a guy that you want to sit, a running back or a start? You got a running back?
So I just want to bring this up real quick because, again, I'm a Vikings fan. I don't think Dalvin plays this week. So hopefully you're smart enough to have his backup in Alexander Madison. This is Alex. You see it every time that Dalvin Cook goes out. Alexander Madison comes in, he averages like 17 to 20 fantasy points. Doesn't matter who he's playing against. This guy is a good running back, and he for whatever reason he doesn't see loaded boxes. But you saw that run in the fourth quarter last week against Detroit. He took on 3 tacklers, still scored. He's a good running back, and you can feel comfortable. I don't think Dalvin plays this week because it's in London, so I don't even think he's going to travel with the team, to be honest with you. So put Alexander Madison in your lineup. I have a strong feeling he's going to be a top 10 to 15 running back this week. So just, again, every time Dalvin's out, start Alexander Madison. Oh, you muted yourself. There you go.
Yeah, no, he always goes off when Dalvin's out. So that's a good one for sure. A guy I have on the sits list, as we kind of talked about Kenneth Walker on the waiver ads, Rashad Penny. And I know he's got the green matchup against Detroit, and last year he went off against Detroit. But Rashad Penny, like if you look at he's going slowly starting to go down, and they're starting to go up. I think Detroit is actually going to be up ahead on Seattle. So he's the game script. Why not get the kid in there a little bit? You know, you're going to be losing. Why not see what the kid has? So I think that Penny, if you have other options, which you probably do at this point, if you drafted Rashad Penny, I'm sure you didn't put all your eggs in that basket. You shouldn't have. But Rashad Penny, he's a guy that I know the matchup says yes, but he's just a guy I haven't felt good about all year.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. That's something that I'm starting to see the change a little bit until something happens in that backfield and we have definite, what's going to happen there. I don't like anybody really in that offense at all, but I talked about that Jeff Okudah matchup on DK. I think that's going to slow him down a little bit. I got a call from the FBI and CIA dude, the Witness Protection Program, and Tyler Lockett was calling. So we might actually see a Tyler Lockett sighting this week. I hope, man, because I like this guy a lot. I've always liked him. I think he plays the game the right way, but where the fuck has he been without Russ, man? He just is just non-existent. But I think this is a week where he could actually show up. And if anybody in that offense where you're hoping for just a miracle, it's going to be from Tyler Lockett.
That'd be Tyler Lockett. I think trade when I think of him. And it's funny. I was thinking, me and Danny were talking. My brother is a 49ers fan. He wants them to trade for Kareem Hunt because that way they can get a really good running back down there. And it's like, dude, that would be good for the Niners. That would help them. And then, like, if somebody can go after Lockett and get him, because he's a good player. He just obviously in that offense with that quarterback, it's not working out. But, like, if he gets in the right situation, man, he could take off. So hang on to some of these guys that have the ability, like, because we all know Tyler Lockett, what he's capable of doing. But, yeah, like, it's just been rough. And we were on that coming into the season. His draft status went down a lot this year without Russ. So, you got any other running backs that you want to start?
No, man, I've gone over all my running backs. There was one receiver that I hadn't really got a chance to talk about, and that's Jahan Dotson. Started the first 2 weeks really, really strong. Had a dud last week. I think everybody in Washington had a dud last week. But going into this week against Dallas, man, he's again, they're going to need to find a way to score something. And Terry McLaurin doesn't play well against Dallas. Last year, he had a dud against them. He had a straight 0 against them. And then he had a game where he only had 3 catches for 40 yards. And, he's Trayvon Diggs, man, I've been kind of wrong about him so far this year. Last year, he led up the most yards in football, and you kind of expected him to be, you keep hearing Troy Aikman talk about double move. Well, he's even ready for that now. So, he might be one of the premier cornerbacks in the league, and he's a playmaker. So Jahan Dotson is probably going to be running free a couple times this week, and that's where I think the points are going to come. So if you need a guy, of course he's rostered already. So if you need a guy, this is a guy you can put in your flex wide receiver 3 spot.
Yeah, he's had some good weeks for sure, and they're a team that might be trailing. So definitely. Yeah. As far as that wraps up receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, tight ends. We got one, and I'll start out with a sit. Man, George Kittle. I just don't. He had, I think, 5 targets, 4 catches, 28 yards last week, and that was his debut. But they almost use him as a blocker. Ayuk, Debo, even Jennings is getting run. So like he's just not the same George Kittle that we seen a couple of years ago. I don't know if it's happened to do with him getting paid and or what, but I mean he just hasn't been the same.
Dude, he's one of my favorite players in football. I love George Kittle, dude. I love that guy. I think he's funny as hell. I love the way he plays. I don't think he's healthy yet. I don't think he's 100% there yet. But I mean, you saw Kyle Juszczyk making plays on the field. You're seeing him get, goal line carried and stuff like that. Yeah, until further notice, man, he might be a sit. That offense looked fucking terrible last week. I mean, they had like multiple punts. I mean, Jimmy just. I'm tired of talking about San Francisco, to be honest with you, but that offense just looked fucking terrible. This
Those
is a game.
punters looked great. Those
Yeah,
punters put on a show.
yeah, this game, dude. Who are they playing this week? Oh, they're playing the Rams too. I don't know what his history is like against the Rams. It's on Monday Night Football. Yeah, they're gonna have to score some points, but this is a Debo and Brandon Ayuk game, maybe a Jeff Wilson game. George Kittle is gonna need to give Jimmy some time, so I don't see him running as many routes as normal. So yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I hate to say it because I still think George Kittle's a premier tight end in football because of the way he run blocks it, and he catches everything that comes his way. But
Brittle Kittle.
I don't think he's healthy
Brittle
yet, man.
Kittle.
And I don't know if he'll ever be 100% healthy again. To be honest with you, it's sad. Every time you see him like, hey, he's picking it up, he gets hurt again. So I love the guy,
He's
but
got to like he plays like a wrecking ball. He's got to play smart at the same time too, and know how valuable he could be to his team if he just would stay on the field consistently. But he's got other priorities, if you ask me. But anyways, that's George Kittle. I got him on the sit list. Who you got on the start list at tight end?
I have one that I'm gonna breeze through because everybody's talking about him now after last week is David Njoku. If you have him, I feel like you can start him now. So I'm just gonna breeze over that real quick. I have him written down. Everybody has him written down. So yeah, I mean, I'm confirming what everybody else is saying. Go ahead and feel good about that. Logan Thomas against Dallas. Again, I think that there's going to be targets to be had in that game. I think they're going to need to find somebody in the red zone, and Logan Thomas is somebody that can go out and get you 10 to 15 points at tight end. He's not one of those guys you get super, super excited about, but we seem to keep talking about him, week on and week off. When he's healthy, he's actually a pretty damn good tight end, and I think this is a week where he has a good chance to catch a touchdown.
Yeah, and it could be. What's funny about that game is I actually in my other league I dropped Logan Thomas. I'm fortunate I have Travis Kelce, so he was almost like a flex/insurance policy, and to keep him on by other teams because I know the upside that he has. But yeah, I dropped them for the Cowboys defense. I picked up the Cowboys defense to spot start them this week against Washington. I almost called them the Redskins again, but yeah, the Commanders. So yeah, I think that the Cowboys defense, I picked them up, and I'm getting a little. We don't talk about defenses, but you brought it up that matchup. So that's a streaming defense that I was able to grab, and I feel pretty good about. Dude, Micah Parsons. You brought up Diggs, and Carson Wentz. We saw how he made the Jaguars defense look like last week. So that's an option that I went.
Yeah, man. I just say I think that Dallas is going to get up in that game, 14-17 nothing real quick, but that's a rivalry, man. And like anything can happen, but you saw it last year. I mean, they hung up like 40 points in the first half, and it's just Dallas has their number, and they're a more talented offense all around. And they're gonna need to come from behind, and like that's what I think that's what Eric's thinking with JD McKissick is that they're gonna have to find a way to sling the ball around, but that's a game that I'm thinking it's gonna be 41-17 Dallas or something like that. I don't think there's gonna be very much chance for Washington to win that game, but that's just my opinion on it. Last guy I have on my tight end spot. I have a question mark against this because he is banged up and he may not play, but is TJ Hawkinson. So he hasn't had a great start to the season. He's been okay. He's been damn near average. That's on the high side, I guess.
Yeah, putting it nicely.
Yeah. If he plays this week, I don't think Amon-Ra is going to play. I still have him in my lineup, like with the prayer that he puts a limited practice in tomorrow, but he didn't practice today. I probably won't practice
He's
tomorrow.
got a
If he
couple
doesn't
days.
practice,
Yeah, we'll see how Friday goes. Normally, and he's been in that system. He's tough as hell. Friday's going to be the
yeah,
tell day for him.
that's one of those things where like it may come down to a game time decision, but Hawkinson has a better chance to play this week. So, and then even Josh Reynolds is dealing with an ankle also, so they could be hobbled uh, in that game again. That's why I'm saying sit Jared Goff, like kind of get yourself away from that game, even though the defenses are terrible. Get yourself away from that game as much as you possibly can. Like Jamal Williams, if you have to. But other than that, get yourself away from that game. But Hawkinson's a guy, if he plays, they're going to have to throw the ball somewhere. And that would be, especially in the red zone, that'd probably be a guy most likely to catch a touchdown.
Right, man. So, I mean, those are our starts and our sits. If you guys have any questions with your lineup or who you should start, who you should sit, I know my boy James hit me up last week about Scary Terry or Brandon Cooks, and I told him, dude, I would go with Brandon Cooks because Scary Terry's got a tough matchup with Big Play Slay, and I was looking good for 3 quarters, and then that fourth quarter came around, and they were down 30 points or whatever, and Scary Terry got some garbage points there at the end, and but they both weren't doing good. It's not like Brandon Cooks did much better, so I was off on that one. But I mean, the target share, the matchup, he was going against the Bears, Brandon Cooks. I thought for sure that was going to be the way to go there.
Yeah, James, if you have that same question this week, man, Brandon Cooks is the answer again this week. So if you have that same question, if you're trying to figure out who to put in that receiver spot, Brandon Cooks again is probably I would have gave you the same answer last week. So, don't beat yourself up if the points were so similar.
Hey, no, he ended up winning. I'm pretty sure he's 3-0 in his league. So you're doing the right thing anyway. So keep it up, bro. Yeah, but if anybody else has any question with your lineups, we get them all the time. We're happy to answer, give you guys our 2 cents. Doesn't always work out, but we're right, and our reasoning is pretty good most of the time. So make sure you subscribe and let us know with those questions, guys. And season just getting started, so stay in it.
All right, A2D.